Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning into Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. I am your host, Caleb Jenneret. Next to me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Jenneret. Today, we are talking about conference realignment and what it means for Nebraska. But first, remember to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the bell, follow all of our socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all linked in the description. We're going to be posting over there a lot more than we have been. And speaking of that, I want to mention that we took a long break over the off season, much needed. At least I think we don't want to push out content that's kind of like forced and not happening. So obviously there's some big news happening right now with conference realignment, which is why we're doing an episode now, and we're going to start ramping up as the season gets closer and closer as we have games coming up this month. But obviously we're going to get to all of it. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the schedule, but that's for later videos. I don't want to commit to a schedule right away just because I don't know what's going to happen. Once we get into the season, I think we're going to start doing the at least once a week to go over the game, go over last week's game, stuff like that. But as of right now, before the season actually starts, I don't want to commit to anything yet. We'll start posting on TikTok more regularly. If you're following over there, you've noticed I have started posting more regularly with some exclusive content and going to start doing some clip outs of these shows as well. So, Zach, you got anything before we get right to it?
Yeah, I don't know if we've talked about this or not yet, but August, I believe 21 or August 20, um, we will be headed to Lincoln for the Nebraska podcast award show put on by No Block, No Rock podcast. So just want to thank them for putting that on. Hopefully going to be exciting time and huge for people like us that love to talk about Nebraska sports. Something that I know a lot of other colleges don't do. So just another reason that Huskers are on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, let's just get right into it. Let's get the show started. So, unless you're living under a rock, you know that Oregon and Washington have joined the Big Ten and will be joining along with USC and UCLA next season in the 2024 season, which is going to be crazy. It's going to be huge. But there's a lot of things we got to go over about it. So we're going to talk about just conference realignment in general first. That could be Big 12, it could be Pac 12, it could be SEC, it could be Big 10, it could be anybody that's affects conference realignment. So I'll start with you. What do you think? What do you think about conference realignment just as a whole? Do you like it?
Um, I mean, yes, because I feel like the best teams never like I feel like with this 4 team playoff, like the top teams always play the top teams. But you look last year, like how cool would it have been to watch like Tennessee play Utah, right? Or how cool would it have been to see, say, USC and Penn State play, or like these big games that I feel like we haven't seen happen. Or now, how cool is it going to be to see an offense like Oregon go play an offense like Michigan or Wisconsin, or um, and these different styles, or like Nebraska in November traveling to California. Will that affect them? Or will USC November at 8 o'clock traveling to East Lansing, Michigan? Is that going to affect them?
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, that's just things you got to think about. It's also going to help with recruiting. If you just look at the Big Ten, right? Penn State can now kind of recruit out of California. Rutgers can recruit out of California because you can promise them that almost every year they get a trip home, right? And so that'll help. I like teams that are moving to the Big 12. Um, Honestly, I've been thinking about it. I think the best way to do this is take the teams out of the Pac 12 that have left, But I feel like there's teams in other conferences that need to go to the Pac-12, if that makes sense. So I mean,
I
you're
guess.
looking like Boise State, right? Like I feel like Boise State needs to be in the Pac-12. Um, a lot of those Mountain West teams, like Wyoming, could be a Pac-12 team, right? I mean, pretty much a lot of those Mountain West teams. If you could get rid of the Group of Five conferences, I think that would help out a lot because the reason, like, Group of Five teams haven't been able to make the playoff is because they have Group of Five schedules and they're weak, right? And so they're not proven. But if you can put them all in just Power Five conferences, and then you
Yeah, but
turn it like a, but and you can turn it like a Power Six, right? You could take a conference like the I don't even know, like the American, or and make it a bigger conference. Something that if you had six big conferences, I think it'd be better than five big conferences and five small conferences. If you just had six evenly matched big ones.
yeah, but would it really be like you said, the Power Five or the Group of Five schedule is what's holding them out? But if everybody moves to one conference, like if the Mountain West, if the best teams out of the Mountain West just join the Pac-12, is it really a Power Five conference still, or is it just another Group of Five conference?
Fair,
Because like
fair, but
I
I'm
don't know if it's really the name of like, oh, they're the Pac-12, so they're still Power Five. I think it's moving into like a Power Three or Power Two, if you want to call it Big Ten, SEC, whatever you want to throw, wherever you want to put Big 12. I
I
mean,
think Big 12. I mean,
they're still
Big 12.
respectable.
You still got good teams in there.
They
You
just don't
still
have the marquee markets. Like Big 12 was respectable because they had Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, two of the biggest markets in college football. Now they're both
well,
gone. Their biggest
now they
market.
have arguably the biggest market in college football in Colorado.
Not
I
no.
mean, the hottest market
Sure,
in football.
sure. But
Right
who knows
now,
what's going to happen with that in
State.
2 years?
Another really hot market is Kansas right now. Kansas is a very hot market in college football right now. Um,
Yeah, but you got to
Still
admit,
got
none of those are
Texas Tech,
like if you're doing tiers of
Oklahoma State. Like you still got good teams in there.
right, but
TCU, you know,
here's my thing. You're talking markets. If you're saying markets on a tier level in the country, you got the top markets. You got Texas, USC, Alabama. Like nobody in the Big 12 is touching that top tier.
no, I definitely think there's three if we're doing a power three.
Right. Right. They're definitely three, but I'm not trying to say three is bad. Like three is a good place to be in
No,
right now with everybody wanting to leave the ACC. Everybody is leaving the Pac-12. So, I mean, Big 12 is set. I think Big 12 has done a really good job, especially since they lost two of their biggest markets, and then rebounded by adding maybe the best group of five teams they could find. So, I think Big 12 is doing great. I don't think Big 12 should be upset at all. I like conference realignment. Um, I don't really buy into the fact that, I think a lot of these, I don't want to call them old heads because I think they have a good point when they say like it kind of ruins that tradition, which sure. I mean, the Rose Bowl kind of dead, but it was kind of dead already because of the 12-team playoff. Like,
right.
what were you going to do? Like, three Big Ten teams inevitably at least are going to make the playoff every year. Last year, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State all would have made the playoff. Count USC as a Big Ten team, they would have made the playoff. That's four Big Ten teams. You're telling me the fifth best Big Ten team is now going to play in the Rose Bowl? Like, is that really a good tradition to still have?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's four teams right now in the Pac-12. So, like, what are we doing? Like, I get that tradition is kind of ending, but that's just kind of how it is. There's a 12-team playoff now. The Bulls really don't mean anything anymore. So, I mean, if you're not in the playoff, it doesn't really matter. And that's just kind of the way it's going. That's kind of
So
the way people are pushing college football
okay,
anyway. So being upset
if
about
you
it.
look at, if you look at Big Ten teams, I guess now Big Ten teams, right, that were in playoff contention last year, there was six in the final rankings. Six Big Ten teams in the final rankings. Three SEC teams.
Right.
And
So that's nine teams already.
two Big 12 teams.
Right. There you go. I mean, yeah, that's 11. Are you counting Utah as a Big 12 team?
Yes.
Okay.
So the
Utah,
only ones I'm not counting are
K-State, TCU.
Florida State, Clemson, and Tulane are the only ones that are not counted in there. And Florida State and Clemson have the possibility of going to the Big Ten.
Right. They both went out. Or at least Florida State has been adamant that they are leaving the ACC, which we'll talk about a
Correct.
little bit later. But
So, I mean, we could look at Tulane as being the only team in the top 15 not in those Power Three conferences. If you look at Clemson and Florida State going, that's 8 of the top 15 teams in the ending rankings last year that are in the Big Ten now.
right.
Eight of the top 15. And so I guess if you want to talk about what this means for Nebraska, it means that we got to step it up and be really good really fast, essentially, because I'm sorry, but teams like Rutgers are just
Oh, they're dead. I mean,
it's done, right? Teams like Rutgers, teams like, um, Northwestern now,
Indiana. Yeah.
Indiana. I mean, Illinois is trending that way.
Illinois
Purdue,
up. Illinois is trending up.
Illinois is trending up, but it's looking to the fact where like, dude, you got to have a big market to compete,
You have to.
right? So look at the teams that are up there, right? Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State.
Well, that's actually the point I wanted to get to next is ranking markets, just pure brands in the Big Ten. And I think
Right.
there's pretty easily 3 tiers. So tell me what you think about this. This isn't in any order. This is just tiers. So biggest brands in the Big Ten, the new Big Ten, with everybody involved. I have Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Nebraska, and USC as my top 5. Nebraska's probably last on that list just because recent hasn't been great.
I would still put us
Sure,
above Penn State as a market,
sure. And that's my next tiers.
and even Oregon.
No, I mean Oregon's brand is Nike, so it's like it's kind of hard to like
That's
just
true.
like Oregon has the uniforms, they got the high-powered offense, I mean, they've got legit things. Like they have legit things. My second tier was like Penn State, which is teetering on that first tier just because they're always good at football. But when you think of like football in college football, you're not really thinking of Penn State. At least in my opinion, I could definitely be wrong, but I have Penn State, Michigan State, Iowa, and UCLA in that second.
I think you have to put Wisconsin in there as well,
Wisconsin as well. Yeah, Wisconsin just totally slipped my mind, but I would definitely put Wisconsin in there as well. Just
and
because
possibly Illinois.
Illinois,
Definitely on the bottom. I feel like Illinois and Minnesota are very similar,
they're
very
close.
very
I would
similar.
say they're close to that
Same
second
with
tier.
Purdue.
It's like,
Same
yeah.
with Purdue.
I mean, maybe there's 4 tiers where you'd put like the Illinois, Purdue, Minnesota, and then kind of like everybody else, like Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers. Like they're not really making a difference. If they left the Big Ten tomorrow, they're not really making a difference. Like nobody's really like, oh my gosh, we just lost out on Maryland. Like Maryland's probably going to be a decent team this year, but like,
They'll probably be a 5-6 winner,
right,
5 winner, right?
like no one's thinking they're about to change the landscape of college football. So,
Exactly.
and I think that's what
Uh,
the top
wait,
three.
wait, what about UCLA? What about UCLA? Where do
I
you put
have
them?
them. I have them 2 in the second tier, just because, like USC, they don't have a large fan base, but you can't take away LA. And USC at least has had the dynasty of like Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and
Right.
all them. UCLA kind of hasn't really had that, but they're still in LA. So it's kind of hard to put them any lower than the second tier. If I was ranking them and Iowa are probably comparable in just pure brands, just because
Yeah.
Iowa's football. Like you still know what Iowa football is going to be. It's going to be every year they're going to be top 25 teetering team. They're going to have a winning record. UCLA may have some down years, may have some great years like last year. I think Chip Kelly's doing a great job, but like they're still in LA. Like that's got to be incorporated into it. So, but I still think Nebraska's on that top tier. I mean, Nebraska, unless for the next 15 years, Nebraska keeps going the way they've been going, Nebraska's on that top tier. I mean, you can't take away as much as people hate talking about the 90s and talking about '80s and Osborne and everything like that. You can't take it away. Like it happened.
I mean, think about it though. They can say like we got to take that away, but you take USC's year last year away,
Right.
that's all they need as well, right? And
Right.
they're still a program. Definitely almost a not a blue blood, but
Right. You take
almost.
away the 6 years of Chip Kelly in Oregon, like is Oregon doing anything? Or you take away really this
Jim
last
Harbaugh in Michigan.
right. That's what I'm saying. This last in Michigan, they're kind of a middling program as well. So yeah, it's kind of all things considered, you got to take in everything. USC, you got to take in early 2000s. Nebraska, you got to take in the 90s. Oregon, you got to take in the 2010s, and then Michigan, Ohio State, you got to take in recently. So it's like Ohio State's probably, I would say, the top brand in the Big Ten right now, just because their dominance has been a thing for a long time. So Penn State, as I said, is kind of teetering on that top just because recently they've been kind of that 9-10. They could be one of the best. I think they will be one of the best teams in the country this year. So yeah, they're teetering. They could easily jump into that top tier. Same with Wisconsin if Luke Fickell completely turns this around. But next, I wanted to get into competitiveness. So talking about football teams at all, where does Nebraska stand in the next 5 years? And what needs to happen for Nebraska to stay relevant? I'll let you go first.
In the next 5 years, I mean, I think we're looking. I like to think that in 3 to 5, we're looking on the edge of the playoff, like the that
So,
10 to 12 spot,
okay.
that 10 to 12 spot, or I guess it'd be like 8 to 12 spot, right?
So looking
Yeah,
at
8 to 12
teams,
spot.
you have to be better than I mean, the names I just listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 teams in these top two tiers. You probably have to be better than four of them to be
Right.
in that range. So you're saying you have to be better than Michigan State, have to be better than Iowa, have to be better than UCLA, and then out of the other teams, you got to be better than one of them every year. I think that's
Which
definitely
I think is,
I think it's
I think
definitely
so.
doable.
Sure.
Not easy. Definitely not easy.
No, no,
Because
I like to see
you're
us
playing six of these
in the
teams. You're
playoff.
playing at least four of these teams every year.
But I like to think that we are going to be somewhere on the edge of playoff contention, possibly sneak in within the next 3 to 5 years. With Matt Rule here, I think next year is going to be a good. I think our floor is 5, and I think our ceiling is 8.
So
Um,
I
wins.
just want to know, devil's advocate, what makes you think that without even seeing Matt Rule coach a single game for Nebraska yet?
Right. Because you have to think something, right?
Yeah.
You can't just think nothing. And so
Right.
you have to think something. And so, I mean, just I feel like there's different culture. I feel like the people we've brought in are better.
Recruiting.
Like you look at like Wags, the the old players talk about, past coaches versus these players that have played under both now talking about the new culture. I mean, you can tell there's something going there that hasn't been there in a very, very long time. Recruiting, when was the last time we were like an early top, we're like top 15 in the nation right now
I
in
think
recruiting.
it was probably that first Scott Frost class. I think it was the first one with like Wandale and
Right.
Martinez. So
And
a bit for sure.
another thing is like, you look at all like just the player developers we have on staff that we haven't had before. I mean, this guy didn't go out and just hire his buddies. He went out and hired like, the best that he could find because he's just not going to settle for anything less. And you just see a different fire in him, I guess, than you see like that Baylor fire, that like Temple fire, the whatever he didn't have when he was at Carolina. I mean, when he was at Carolina, he was just a different person. Just didn't enjoy it. But seems like he's enjoying it now, and I think 5 wins has got to be the floor because I think you win Colorado, I think you win NIU, I think you win Louisiana Tech, right? I think you pick up a possible Minnesota win. That one's iffy. But if you don't pick up that, I feel like you pick up Purdue win, you pick up a Northwestern win, or you pick up an Illinois win. I
Right.
feel like Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue, Northwestern, you're going to win two of those, plus Colorado, NIU, and Louisiana Tech. But at the same time, you may also be able to squeak in like a Michigan State win, a Wisconsin win, an Iowa win, right? But you're not going to get them all.
Right.
But I feel like you can get four of those. And so I feel like that's why our floor is five, right? I mean, you were going to get five. That's got to be the floor. But I feel like our ceiling is eight because I just don't feel like we're the same. We're not at the level to like consistently win the games that, we need to, or beat like, I mean, Michigan is going to be a tough one. I mean, they're returning dang near everyone, and they were a really tough team to
Wow.
beat last
Yeah.
year. Right. And so, um,
Yeah.
I just don't feel like we're there yet to be like that 9-10 win team. I think the skill's there,
Mhm.
but I just don't think I mean, it's a new coach. I think year three, year four, you're looking at like a floor of seven and a ceiling of 10.
Right.
And then year five, you're looking like, like he's got to move it up.
This could be it.
You know,
Right. Right.
but if you could squeak like a 9-10 win year in one of those year three or year five or four, obviously, then that's just different. You're just gonna, that's how you make playoffs is by beating teams in the Big Ten. And the games you got to win are like the Wisconsins, the Iowas, the Michigan States, the Minnesotas, not those games that you're supposed to win. Those like 50-50 games, if you can start stringing those together, then that's how you get into like things like home playoff games. And that's something that I feel like would be a once in a lifetime experience. Would be a home playoff night game and Memorial. But that would be insane.
Yeah. So the way I think about it, Nebraska's got to start doing something better than what they've been doing. I mean, they got to jump on the train immediately because looking at trajectory wise, Ohio State's not going anywhere. Michigan's not going anywhere. USC, the way they look now, looks like they're not going anywhere. Penn State has been on an upward trend. They're not going anywhere. Um,
Oregon,
Oregon's not going anywhere. I mean, last time Nebraska played Oregon, Nebraska won. So shout out to Tommy Armstrong on that one. But like
Washington.
Washington's coming in. I completely left Washington out of the tiers, but I'd probably put them in that second tier.
Looking at Iowa and Wisconsin are always going to be good.
Right, Wisconsin, depending on what happens with Luke Fickell, he could turn that program around and they could become one of the top teams in the Big Ten, like they always usually are. Iowa, I would say Iowa's kind of on the downward trend right now. It's kind of hard to
They
say
are.
just because Brian Ferentz is getting older, or Kirk Ferentz is getting older. Brian Ferentz looks like he has a clock on his head. So UCLA, never really know, could be up and down. We'll see what happens this year without their star quarterback. Um, Michigan
Minnesota.
State, Michigan State, yeah, Minnesota, they're kind of the same every year. Michigan State could be. This is Mel Tucker's kind of prove it year that Mel Tucker could be fired halfway through the year. Who knows? Illinois looks like they're on the up. So Nebraska has to, and the way it looks, Matt Rule's got something going. If he can recruit this well without even playing a game yet, without even coaching a game, think of what he can do if he starts winning games. So I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is if Nebraska continues to 5 wins, 6 wins, while USC is winning 12, Ohio State is winning 12, Michigan's winning 12, Oregon's winning 10, Penn State's winning 10. Like, it's going to be tough to jump up to that level if we don't start. If Matt Rule's not the guy. If Matt Rule's not the guy, it can be a tough next few years for Nebraska. I'm not saying Matt Rule's not the guy. I think if anybody's going to be the guy, it's him. But it's kind of worrisome to me.
In my eyes, if Matt Rule is not the guy, it's going to be. So that's why I like to tell people we obviously both come from Kansas.
Mm,
I feel like if Nebraska goes and shoots out and misses with Matt Rule, you're looking at a KU type rebuild from 2010 on, right? I mean, you're looking at like a long term rebuild because at that point, I mean, the last time we would have had a winning season would have been so long.
Yeah.
So. And so it's like, you know, everyone thought Scott Frost was the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone in their right mind would have hired Scott Frost to that job. Let's be
Right.
real.
But
You
that
can
wasn't, it
contract.
was the right hire. It was the hindsight, it wasn't the right hire, but that was the home run hire.
It was. I mean, anyone in their right mind makes that hire.
Yeah.
Mike Riley, on the other hand, like
Questionable.
questionable hire. Bo Pelini fire, Frank Solich fire, like also questionable. Then Mickey Joseph comes in here. Looks like he could be the guy, right? Looks to possibly be the guy. Few things take a downward spin. He doesn't have the experience that we need. A couple things happen in his, off the field life. He's gone. Matt Rule comes in. Everyone's kind of questioning, like, you just came out of the NFL and absolutely bombed it. And so far, he's proved it, right? But you look at every other year and we're off-season national champions.
Right. And here's what I think. Here's what I tell people when
So
they
I guess what's different?
right. Here's what I tell people when they question Matt Rule. You take away Carolina, the year after the Baylor turnaround, Oregon wanted to hire Matt Rule. Matt Rule obviously ends up going to the NFL, chasing his dream. Doesn't work out. Oregon hires Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal leaves. Now they hire Dan Lanning. Whatever. Everybody wanted Matt Rule. Matt Rule was the guy. He was the number one hottest name on the market. He had just turned around Baylor. He had turned around Temple before that. He was the guy. Everyone wanted him. And if you don't know, Matt Rule is younger than Scott Frost. Like, that's ridiculous to me, knowing everything Matt Rule has done compared to everything that Scott Frost has done. I'm not trying to hate on Scott Frost. He's a Nebraska legend forever. Didn't work out as a coach. Whatever. Matt Rule, I think, is the guy. Just because everybody wanted him for a reason. Like, I know I hate this argument myself. Like, look at what Nick Saban did. Went to the NFL, didn't work, came back. I'm not trying to compare Matt Rule to Nick Saban, but like, it doesn't work for everybody in the NFL. Lane Kiffin went to the NFL, didn't work. Everybody knows he's a great college coach, right? It just doesn't always work. But Matt Rule is a great college football coach. Anybody who ranks him outside the top 20 college football coaches in the country doesn't know what they're talking about. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be a great year, I think, right away. If we get 7 wins this year, I'm all about it. I love it. Heck, if we get 6 wins, I'm like, we're going to a bowl game. I'm excited. If we get 3 wins, I'm also not throwing everything under the bus. Like, it's going to take some time to develop Nebraska into what we want Nebraska to be. Say year 4 comes around, we're still teetering around 6, 7 wins every year. I might start questioning a little bit, but I'm not in any position to question what Matt Rule is doing because as of right now, it looks good. And from his past, he's done fine. So I'm not worried about it at all. Next, we're going to get, or lastly, I guess, we're going to get into who else may be coming to the Big Ten or even moving in general. But we'll start with the Big Ten. Obviously, the big names that are out there: Clemson, Florida State. I think North Carolina was in that group as well. Miami, obviously. I think Miami, if they're going to leave, it's going to go to the SEC. But it seems like Clemson and Florida State are out. Florida State for sure. I think actually officially they've said like they don't want to be in the ACC. So looks like Florida State might be the team that joins the Big Ten next. But Zach, I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State and Clemson are the rumors. Obviously, so far, every time there's been a rumor, they just happen to be true, and so I wouldn't be surprised. Um, I don't know that I really agree with it. I mean, we now span from the top corner of Washington, or I guess we guys be top corner of Washington, right, to the top corner of the New England states, now to the bottom corner of Florida, all the way through the Midwest. I mean, we have no one in the South, I
Yeah,
guess,
but you don't really.
obviously.
I mean, that doesn't really matter. That doesn't really matter anymore.
It doesn't, but it's like why would Clemson not go to the SEC? Why would Florida State not go to the SEC? What's wrong with the ACC? I know the Pac-12
ACC, it's
was
TV. ACC's TV deal.
that was the Pac-12 issue too, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
But they only showed on Pac-12 Network.
right. ACC network is also pretty bad.
But like they show on more than that, right? Like
Right.
Fox,
Well, that's different because the Pac-12 showed on more of that too. You just never saw
barely.
it because it was like at 9:30 at night because it's West Coast. And the only times you saw it are Oregon, USC, maybe UCLA and Washington every now and then, Utah. The ACC, you're going to see it a lot more because of Clemson, Florida State. I mean, these are national championship teams.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm all right with it. If it happens, it happens. But I mean, you get a few more teams. You're looking at 20 teams in the Big Ten. 20.
right. I mean,
You
and
go to
teams aren't going to want to leave.
four divisions. You know what I mean? Do you go to 4 or 5 team divisions?
Yeah. But like teams
And
aren't
those
going
are
to
your
want
locks every year, and then you just play one other team from each division and a few non-conference games.
to. Yeah. So it's like if you're Rutgers and you see all this happening, being realistic, you're never going to compete.
Do you
But you're
leave?
also, if you leave, you're not getting near as much money as you will be in the Big
Correct.
Ten. So, like, where's that trade off sit? Would you rather be competitive in a group of five or possibly the ACC every year? Or would you rather make millions and millions and millions of dollars being in the Big Ten? And we're talking just football. This goes into every sport. Like Rutgers, great wrestling program, good basketball program. Don't know how they are at baseball or anything like that. But if you look at just football, Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Northwestern, never competing again, especially if Clemson and Florida State join. I mean, that's two more top tier programs. Like they're both going in the tier one as well. So it's like at some point you got to realize like this isn't going to work, but also what else are you going to do? Like you going to go join the American and win 8 games, or are you going to make millions and millions of dollars losing every year? And that's just a football, like I said. But
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hard choice.
like with Nebraska, you have a big enough brand where you're like, yeah, if we can be in the
Yeah,
Big
we
10,
can be
we're
fine.
going to be in the Big Ten and we're going to be fine in the Big Ten. But like Northwestern is getting swallowed in the Big Ten. Like, especially with everything happening now, they might be lucky to win a game next year. I think they might have an FCS opponent on the roster that they will probably, or on the schedule that they might beat. But other than that, I mean, who knows if they'll win a single game? Indiana, same thing. Like, just bad football, bad football.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Conference realignment's nowhere close to being done. Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, um, Miami. I mean, these are all teams that are probably going to be somewhere else. You still look at the Pac-12, like Oregon State, Washington State. Are they now going to be Mountain West teams? Are they going to be MAC teams? I mean, are they going to be in the Big 12? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with them? Is there another conference where if everybody big leaves the Pac-12 or the ACC and the Pac-12 just going to conjoin the rest of their teams? I don't know. I'm excited for it. I like it. Like I said in the beginning, I don't think it really has that much effect on me except to make better games every week. Because would you rather have the chance of USC and Michigan playing, USC and Ohio State playing? It could be every week. Or would you rather have USC and Fresno State or USC and Washington State playing in a week. It's like you want to see these big games, so don't complain that now we have more big games. So that's where
Exactly.
I'm at with it. But you got anything else before we sign this off?
Nope.
All right, so we will see you guys when we see you guys. I'm not going to say a date right now because I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like it, subscribe. We're going to be on all audio platforms as well. So head over there, rate us 5 stars. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, sure you head to the YouTube, like, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the future. Also, make sure you follow all the socials in the description. But without further ado, go Big Red.